Hi. So, in this assignment, we are going to be talking about Object Snap. And Object Snap can be found down here on the status toolbar. And if I open this up with this little drop-down arrow, there are several settings for the Object Snap. And so, usually you want to have multiple of these on. So, I like to have an endpoint, midpoint, center, geometric center, quadrant, intersection, perpendicular. And you may want to turn on and off these depending on what you're drawing and what you're trying to select. And so I am going to go through this assignment one at a time, and we are going to go through most of these. And these are very useful for making accurate drawings. So you want to make sure you always have your object snaps on because if you don't, then your drawings aren't going to be 100% accurate. You might think that you are clicking the end of a line and you might be just a little bit off, and we want our drawings to be perfect. All right, and so another thing along with object snaps is this one right here. So object snap tracking. So let me show you what that is really quick with the endpoint. So if I go to line and I have endpoint turned on and I want to snap to this line, I can go ahead and I can hover over that. If I click here, it's going to snap to that endpoint because I saw that little orange box show up and now I have a line. But if I want to turn on this, actually, let me show you without it first. So if I hover here, but let's say I want it to be lined up with this, I want it to track down. I can't see if it's exactly lined up if I move away from this line. But if I were to turn on this snapping reference lines, and I'm in my line command still. So if I hover over that and I track down, now I can create a line that is on track with this endpoint. So I can create it down here if I want. And then I can snap to the other endpoint or to this one or whatever. And so usually I like to have the object snaps on and the object snap tracking. Those just pair really well together. All right, and so I'm going to go through this and I'm going to I'm going to snap to each of these things, and I'm just going to do that with the line tool mostly. And then I will leave it to you to create that same thing on the right side in this right column here. And it doesn't have to be exactly how I did it, as long as you're snapping to the correct spot. So I'm going to go into line, and now I want to turn on midpoint. And I can click here and I snapped to the midpoint. Alternatively, I'm back in my line command, I could have clicked into space and then I could have snapped into the midpoint like that. All right, and so now let's do the center. I'll go back to line and I'll click into space. I'm going to hover over my circle so that way I can see that little circle snap, and I will create my line to that. And then I will move on to geometric center. And so this is for any closed object. You can find the geometric center of that object and with your object snap. And so I will go ahead and select over here. It's snapped to the center of that pentagon. And then for the node, not everything creates a node. Like for example, let me turn on my node snap and turn this one off. You might think these intersection points look like nodes, but they are not considered nodes. So nodes can be created with points. You can put points on your drawing, and that would be a node. Also, text creates nodes, and so if I hover over this text, I can see the nodes here. So I'll go ahead and just create a line to each of these nodes. All right, in quadrant, you can snap to the quadrant point of an arc, a circle, an ellipse. And so this circle is going to have 4 quadrants. Let me turn that on. And by the way, a lot of times you don't want to snap to a node, but so you would have this turned off. But if you do, go ahead and use that, obviously. So I'll select polyline for this one, and I'm going to snap to each of the quadrants in here. There we go. Nice and accurate. And then intersection. I'll turn on intersection. These circles are intersecting right here. There we go. And then extension. Usually for extension, you can have just extension on if you'd like, but a lot of times it is useful to also have the endpoint because you want to start from the endpoint and create an extension line. I mean, you could start elsewhere, but for example, let's see here. So I have extension on. I could start from somewhere else and create a line, right? But a lot of times you want to extend from your starting point. So, I could go into it. So this is a line and it's overlapping with my pink line. So I'm going to turn on both endpoint and extension. So I'm back on my line. I grab the endpoint and now I want it to extend. All right, so now I just created an extension of that line. And I'm going to do the same thing for this circle. I'm going to use the arc tool for this. We haven't gone over this just yet. We will soon. But because this is a circle, I want to continue that with an arc. So I'm going to click on the end and then now I see extension right here. So I could click here and then if I go all the way to the end, it's going to make that into a full circle. All right, and then insertion. This is the insertion point for a block. So a block, we will go over this in more detail as well, but a block is a combined set of individual lines, arcs, line segments, etc. That will make one object. So we turn this into a block so that way we can move it around and it all stays together. And this here is the insertion point. And so if I want to snap to that, I would turn on the insertion. I can create a line and I can snap to that insertion point. All right, and then perpendicular. I'm going to press L and spacebar for line, and then let me turn off endpoint and insertion and turn on perpendicular, and I could create a line. Even if I go over here, this is where it's going to snap to because that's what's perpendicular with this pink line. All right, and then tangent. Once again, line. And then I'm going to create a line that is tangent with this circle. There we go. So that line is tangent with that circle. And then nearest is used when you want to snap to some curve, or this is a spline, circle, arc, whatever it is. It could be a line too, but you don't necessarily want to snap to the end point or the midpoint or an intersection point or anything like that. And so, but you want to snap to it. So if I were to take my line, for example, I could snap anywhere on this line. Same with the circle. I could snap I don't just go to a quadrant. I don't just go to some tangent point. It could go anywhere on the edge of the circle. All right, and so that would be nearest. And if you notice, I don't have a parent intersection in here because we want to make very accurate drawings. We don't want to snap to something that looks like an intersection or it might be an intersection. It's either going to be an intersection or it's not. And so this one, we're not going to be practicing. So I'm going to skip to parallel and I'm going to grab my line. I'm going to just click here into space and then I want to create a line parallel to this. So I'm going to hover over that. I see the little parallel lines and then now I could create a line that is parallel with that one. Okay, and then I will leave this right column for you guys to do. All right, thank you.